Have up next our first ever HADDS panel. So we have folks joining internationally from Brazil, several that are virtual from the US that weren't able to be attending in person, as well as 3 panelists here that will be speaking. So it's going to be a bit of a hybrid situation. We've already prompted with a few questions in advance. However, we're going to have an open Q&A session as well towards the back end of the panel so that you guys can ask anything that you'd like to know. So we have Hannah Childers, who is from San Antonio, Texas. Dexter Mendez from the UK. Danielle Thomas Slaughter from Pennsylvania. Sadie Jones Hernandez from Utah. Lila Kosman from Pennsylvania. Jonatas de Valveri from Brazil. And Bianca Balawans, Minnesota. We are going to have a moderator today be Lindsay Marshall from our board. Thank you guys so much for joining. We cannot wait to have this discussion.
Great. Thank you very much to our panelists for joining us. And as Mallory mentioned, we do have people joining virtually as well. So we'll do our best with our technology, ask our virtual folks to just unmute when they're presenting and then mute again after, if that's okay. And again, we're very excited to have our first global panel here of young adults and adults who have a HADDS or 10q26 related diagnosis. So we'll start by, and I'll just jump around a bit with some of these questions, but we'll start by just asking if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves and maybe tell us about when you received your HADDS diagnosis. So I'll start with Hannah because you're right here, if you don't mind. And then I'm also just going to be mindful of time because I know we'll have lots of great questions for these individuals. So if I happen to cut you off, it's not personal. So yeah, Hannah, if you could tell us a bit about you and how old you were when you received your HADDS diagnosis.
So I'm Hannah. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I first received the diagnosis in 2019 when my son and I were tested, and it showed AUTS2 first and then EBS3 after. So that's when I received my diagnosis.
All right. Thanks, Hannah. And how about you, Dexter?
I'm Dexter. I'm from Newcastle, England, and I first realized when I got diagnosed in 2016.
Okay. Lila?
I'm Lila. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I first got diagnosed when I was 11, so in 2017.
Okay. And how about Bianca? Are you with us virtually, Bianca?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi.
I'm 27, and I got the HADDS diagnosis when I was 21, and that was in 2020.
Okay, thanks, Bianca. And I see Sadie's joining us.
Hi, I'm Sadie Hernandez. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm 36 now, and I got diagnosed when I was 29 after having my 3rd child.
Okay. And Zoe, we're not sure if Zoe's joining us. So Zoe, if you're there, if you want to type in, but if not, that's okay. Okay. And Jonatas, I forgot to mention, Ramiro's going to help us with the translation if required. So I don't know if you want to, do you want to come up and use the mic here? Sure. So the question is just around how old were you when you received your diagnosis, or what year, if Jonatas is there?
Hi there. My English is not quite good, but I will try to.
Or if you want to answer, yes, in Portuguese, Ramiro's here too. So whatever you're most comfortable with.
Sure. I'm from Brazil, and I have 42 years old. I love camping, biodiversity, many things, and I'm a volunteer of Scout group, Scout by groups. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I work with projects in industrial piping infrastructure. I have a diagnostic last year at research into my son's apraxia of speech when our DNA was tested.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a question that we have for some of our panelists, and I'll probably just ask a couple of you because we have a few to go through here. The question is, what did you think about when you received your diagnosis, and what has been helpful about having diagnosis? So maybe we'll go virtual first. Sadie, would you mind answering this question first?
Yeah. So when I got diagnosed in 2017, it made a lot of sense to a lot of the things that I was experiencing, like social awkwardness. Um, it actually brought peace to me because it was like, a lot of the times I would be like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not normal? And finding out that diagnosis kind of brought me peace.
Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Bianca? How has having a diagnosis been helpful?
I think
And what did you
for so
think?
long, I had so many different symptoms, and we never knew what exactly was going on with me. So to finally have a name for everything that I was experiencing was really, really liberating and freeing. And it was like, oh my goodness, there's a name for something I'm experiencing. And like reading all the symptoms and like seeing there's a whole community of people that are experiencing very similar symptoms. It was very, very comforting. Like there's a community that's just like me. It was very, very amazing. And I felt super like included. It was amazing. It was so cool.
Thank you. And I apologize, Danielle, I missed you in the introductions. Are you joining us? Okay. 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 All right. Okay. So if we go to our in-person panelists, Hannah, would you mind answering that question about what did you think when you received the diagnosis, and what has been most helpful about having a diagnosis?
It helped.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to try Dexter's mic? Try. See what I got. That sounds good.
It helped solidify some of the things I have had challenge with growing up, for sure. It also helped my son get the services he needed. It also helped me to connect to a community bigger than myself, because when you're dealing with something as rare as HADDS, you kind of feel alone in a sense. So knowing that there were others out there as well as other adults, because the genes more pointed at children right now. So knowing there were other adults was phenomenal for me.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I'm going to jump to another question for some of our panelists. So I think, Lila, we heard a bit about this yesterday, but what are some of your proudest accomplishments? We'll go Lila and then Dexter, if that's okay. Yeah.
So I made the varsity team for swimming. I'm a photographer for sports teams and just for fun. And I was on a robotics team in my freshman year of high school, and we got the award for engineering for robotics. And I placed at the PCL swimming championships for the 400 freestyle relay. So that was pretty cool.
That's fantastic. What about you, Dexter? Can you share some of your accomplishments? You want to try the mic or Hannah's mic?
So, don't know if this is an accomplishment, but I learned drumming when I was about, how old? 10. And I do drumming at my school now. I do drumming lessons, and I do a bit of live stuff as well. So
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's very cool. Okay. And then Bianca, how about you? What are some of your accomplishments that you'd love to share with us?
Let's see. One of my accomplishments. in high school, I won an award for one of the like I was voted for an award by my teachers for like best student, and I got to present a speech in front of a bunch of teachers at a luncheon. So that was kind of cool. And that was really awesome, and I really enjoyed that. So that was cool.
Super cool. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll jump around a bit again. So we have a few panelists here that they talked about finding out about their HADS diagnosis from having a child with a HADS diagnosis. So I'm wondering if these panelists can share a bit about parenting a child or children with HADS and your experience with that. So maybe Jonatas and Ramiro, if it's easier to translate, I don't know. So maybe a bit about what's something you'd like to share about parenting a child or children with HADS?
Um, in my family, my father family, are some comorbidities that we only discovered now. I believe my late grandfather did too. There was a case of the Willebrand syndrome in my family, and my sister inherited syndrome. I always had problems with motor coordination, uh, being clumsy. We made facial expressions on the concentration. Great difficulty in being able to play music instruments. My son has more problems, aggravated by the other comorbidities, such as pain, daily do the apraxia, and having to wear glasses. Sizes was 2 or 3 years old. I don't have problems. I think I don't have problems with uh, my life because this, but I don't. I don't know what what problems I had because this.
Okay, thank you. And Sadie, what about you? What's something you can share about parenting a child or children with HADS?
Um, so I have 6 children. 4 of them are my biological and 2 of them are my stepchildren. And all 4 of my biological children have had. And so watching them go through like needing early intervention, speech therapy, geneticist, neurologist, it's actually opened my eyes to like stuff that I've missed out. And I've always said that I've always wanted better for my children, and for them to have the opportunity to deal with this early in life, I think it benefits them as well as it benefits me because I get to see what I could have had, but HADS wasn't diagnosed until 2017, I believe. And so just getting those resources for my children has like made all the difference in the world for me.
Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Hannah? What's something you can share about parenting a child with HADS?
Well, parenting in itself is difficult. So kudos to all the parents, regardless of having a child with a disability. But when you have a child who has any specific type of disability, it doesn't make it impossible, but it definitely makes it harder. It's harder to advocate for that child because some people don't take your advocacy seriously. And they think, oh, well, you're just spitting off smoke, basically. So I've had to advocate, and I'm a fierce advocate for my son. I would drive across state lines, I'd drive across countries for him. Anything he would need, I would provide. We're currently in the process of behavioral interventions, which I'm trying to advocate fiercely for, but I don't think I'm being listened to. So I'd have to advocate even harder for him because he's going to have to grow up with multiple disabilities and he's going to have to navigate that. And that's been hard to watch, to be truthful. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think that's very relatable. We've heard the word advocacy a lot during this conference, right? Advocating and questioning if you're advocating hard enough and knowing that you need to be the advocate for your child and to keep pushing. So great job.
And I'm also an advocate for other children who have HADDS because these children are going to grow up. They're going to become adults and they're our future. And so each and every one of us has to advocate even harder for them. And so as a parent who has HADDS, I'm not knocking any other parent, I'm not, but I feel like I can advocate better for children who have HADDS because I have it as well. I know what they're going to go through. I know the feelings they're going to associate going through school with. I know how they're going to go through college, but that depends on each individual kid too. So I don't know everything. I just know it a little bit better. So that makes me an even fiercer advocate for any child who has special needs, but specifically for the ones who are autistic because I'm autistic. I was diagnosed when I was 9. And I also have HADS. So that makes me a very fierce advocate for anyone who has a special need.
Thank you for that for all of us. Yeah. Okay, Danielle has joined us, so welcome, Danielle. And if you're okay with us flipping to you, if you just want to say hello and introduce yourself and tell us how old are you when you received your diagnosis, or how did you receive your diagnosis?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Danielle. I live in Pennsylvania, the eastern part of Pennsylvania. I have 4 children. My older 2 were 15 and 14, and then my younger 2 were 10 and 6. My 15 and 14-year-old are diagnosis free. My 10 and 6-year-old got diagnosed. We all got diagnosed around the same time. Sorry, I'm just.
You know what? That's okay, Danielle. We can come back to you or whenever you feel like chiming in. No
It's all
problem.
right. Sorry,
Okay.
just listening to Hannah and Sadie, and the advocacy thing is very important. So I do get a little emotional about that. We all received our diagnosis around the same time, roughly between 2018, 2019. And it was a hard pill to swallow because since it was like newly discovered, not a lot of people knew anything about it. And you're sitting there trying to tell doctors and you're trying to make it make sense, so to speak. And the amount of weird looks that you get from people when you try to explain the condition, they just look at you like you're crazy. And, we know we're not because we have the diagnosis. We've seen the side effects of it. Not the side effects, but we've seen what each and every one of us can go through. And now each and every one of us can go through a certain number of things. It may affect all of us the same way. It may affect all of us differently. A lot of what I've discovered is like the motor coordination, the motor skills. The speech has been a big one. Ironically, when I was little, I didn't speak a full sentence until I was 3 years old. And the doctors, when I was young, and granted, I'm going to be 40 in February. And the doctors, when I was young, basically described it to my parents as when you're underwater and you hear someone speaking to you, how it's muffled. And, when I started talking at 3, I was talking in full sentences. Now, my 10-year-old, she didn't start speaking in full sentences until about, how old do you think? Like 5 or 6, guys? Maybe like about 5. And then my 6-year-old just started speaking full sentences, but the ability to actually comprehend what she's saying, it only goes to like immediate family. Whereas, she could be in a bunch of people and speaking and everyone can be looking at her like she's speaking a different language, but we all kind of understand it. And well, granted, I'm kind of lying with that one. Like sometimes a lot of us don't understand it, but she can make sense of it. She knows what she's trying to say, and she gets very angry when nobody understands her. So it's, I've noticed a lot of behavior issues with the HADS. Now, I don't know if that's, I don't know if that goes along with the diagnosis, and I do understand there are some behavioral tendencies with the diagnosis. But parenting any child is not for the weak, and it takes a village. And EDF has definitely changed our lives, and for the better, because it opened us all up to understanding. Each child is different. No matter the diagnosis, each child is not going to have that same persona, so to speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Danielle, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, anytime.
While you're driving. Okay, so I do have another question here for maybe some of our younger panelists. So the question is, do you share about HADS to others? And if so, what do you share that others might be curious about? So maybe Dexter, do you share about HADS, and what do you share with people if you do?
For all the younger people with HADS in the audience, I want you to know that it gets a lot easier. And it's not just you in that position. We're all going through it in this room. So I just want you to know you're not alone, and it will get easier.
Thank you for that. Well, how about you, Lila? Do you share, do you talk about HADS? And if so, what kind of things do you share with others?
I just only started recently telling my friends about it. I didn't tell a lot of people about it before because I was worried about, the usual getting picked on, getting bullied, because I was already experiencing that and I just didn't want to experience it more. But only recently I started telling my friends about it, and they've been pretty positive. I've gotten a lot of curious people, and I just give them the website. Like a lot of people within the past 3 days, because I've been posting about this on social media, they've been asking me about it. So I told them the baseline, and then I gave them the link to the website. And one of my friends actually followed the HADS account on Instagram, and she was like, "Oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna read about this more." So it kind of made me really happy. But what Dexter said, it does get easier sharing this when you're older, because a lot of younger people are really mean during school, but everyone grows up, and it's really quite nice when you get to talk about it with others, because you feel less alone and you can share your stories with other people that don't know what this is. So
Thank you. Bianca, you probably know I'm going to ask you the same question next. So do you talk about HADS, share about HADS, and what do you share with others that might be curious?
I have no problems talking about HADS. I love educating people about it. Even though I don't really know that much about it, I think it's really important to talk to people about it and make them aware of what I'm dealing with, so they can better understand me and how to help me. And advice I would give to someone. Probably what Dexter and Hannah said, that it does get better, and you just gotta keep plugging on and keep pushing through it, even though it's hard.
Thank you. Well, oh yes. We do have a couple more questions here, but I want to make sure that those present virtually and in person have an opportunity to ask. So we might flip it over to some audience questions, and then if there aren't any, we can go back to these ones. So are there any questions in the chat or in the room that people would like to ask our lovely panelists? Okay, yeah, we got one over to the side and one in the back.
Hi. I'm curious for those of you who said, I think it was Lila and Dexter and Bianca, like things do get easier. What kind of things did you find got easier? Was it more on the physical side or in terms of your coordination and things improving, or was it other things? Just curious. And actually that for everyone, I guess also the parents, I'm curious how over time things progressed and what became easier and if anything became harder.
Well, hands-eye coordination became a lot easier for me, and it might not be the same story for other people, but you've just got to go through that tough time to get the good result in the end. So,
Mine got a
Yeah.
lot
Oh,
easier.
I'm sorry, Hannah, you go.
Okay. Mine got a lot easier. I was in physical therapy since I was 6 months old. So I kept going, what, 3 times a week, Mom? Yeah, about 3 times a week I went to physical therapy since I was 6 months old. So I got to build up my core strength and I learned how to walk, and it got a lot easier, and then I got more involved in sports and physical activities like horse riding, cross country, track, soccer, cheerleading, like all things like that. And it really helped hand-eye coordination to get your child involved in sports or drawing or music, learning how to play an instrument. I think it would really help develop that hand-eye coordination and muscular skills.
So Bianca, you were gonna jump in there about
Yes.
what got easier as you got older, and it could be anything, you know, related to the syndrome from when you were younger. Yeah.
Um, it, my coordination definitely got better. A lot better as I get older. However, I am still very clumsy, but I'm not like falling nearly as often as I used to when I was younger. I am still very clumsy. However, it's so much better than when I was younger.
How about Sadie? Was there anything that you might like to share about things that you noticed that got easier as you got older, or maybe even with your kids?
So for me, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 29. And and the time that I did get diagnosed, it made it because I used to be super competitive and always competing against other people, but never quite measuring up to their level. And as soon as I received my diagnosis, it like made all those years of frustration of not being able to measure up go away because I physically limited with what I could do and how like my body functioned and how my brain thought. And for my children, I try to always tell them to just be them because they're not like due to this diagnosis, they're limited, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing to be limited. It's not like people look at disabilities as like a defect in their character. I think having HADS and the EDF3 mutation is a testimony of that we can be stronger people, if that makes sense. Like we have so much more to deal with than the rest of the world who are quote unquote normal. So
Yeah. How about over to Jonatas, if there's things that I mean similar, you got a diagnosis much later in life, but maybe things that make more sense looking back on it, or things with your children that you notice that maybe have gotten easier as they've gotten older.
And I I have a diagnostic with ATHT uh, 2 years ago, and I will investigate if after my children showed traits of diagnostics plan explained. A lot of things happen in my childhood in life, adult life. When I in my childhood, a pedagogic coordination at my school told my parents that I was mentally retarded and would never leave high school. And I have 2 graduations, and the post graduations is it's a problem of the people don't understand this the situation of neurodivergence people. And oh, sorry, I I think it's all.
Yeah, sure. I think that's really hard. A lot of us have been in places like that where those words stick from people who, they might say never or use, really limiting wording. And we all know that that's not the case. So thank you for sharing that. Hannah, did you have something to add? Sure. Yeah, I was just going to ask Hannah, did you want to add anything on like how things changed as you got older? So when Deepa was just clarifying, yeah, what got easier or with what you see with Brayden too?
As a kid, I was a klutz. To be truthful, I was stumbling over everything, falling, running into walls. I still do to a point, but it's gotten a lot better. Socially, I do a lot better. When I was a kid, I was a hermit and a little crap and a little shell all the time. And so when I got into college, I was 19 going to Northwest Vista. And I made it a goal to every day I would talk to one new person because that was one of my fears was talking to people. So every day I would talk to one new person. And I made friends that way. And then I became a social butterfly. So the social aspect does change. You just have to kind of push yourself a little bit. As a child, I hated to be touched. I did not want to be hugged. I did not want to be affectionately touched, eye touches, whatever. I still don't to a point, but I've gotten a lot better at accepting that. As a child, when my mom would hug me, I would cringe, but now I absolutely love her hugs. So that has changed. So it does get better. It does get easier.
Thank you. Do we
have
do we have an online question?
we have a few in the chat. They're related to where are we here? Yeah, when you just started speaking and communicating, were you verbal as children, or at what age did you become verbal and start talking? I think someone shared, but if all of you could.
Lila, did you want to start this one? We'll
So I was in speech therapy for 6 years. I had it in school, and then outside of school, I had it, and I couldn't pronounce my R's well, and I still kind of can't. And I had like slurred I had like slurred. I had slurred speech. So yeah, I was in speech therapy for 6 years. Yeah, I was verbal, but slightly like delayed.
Okay. And Bianca, anything on the speech side that might relate to that question? Do you know?
I was in speech therapy when I was in school. And when I was first learning to talk, my parents said I had a Boston accent because I was kind of delayed with speech. Couldn't enunciate my words properly. My parents used baby sign language a little bit, and that helped them. Like Lila, I had a lot of difficulty with my eyes. I still struggle with my eyes. And slurring my speech was and continues to be an issue. Yeah, so speech therapy has been very helpful to me.
And Danielle, we know you talked a bit about speech and speech with your kids. So if you're okay with me jumping past you over to Sadie, anything on the speech side and that, you know, you've been told about growing up or anything there?
So, yeah, I think I was about 14 months when I walked. I was I developed early in my walking and talking, but my kids, my oldest is going to be 17 next month, and she didn't start walking until she was almost 2. And my second daughter didn't start walking until she was 18 months, and my son didn't start walking until he was 22 months, and then my youngest daughter didn't start walking until she was like 18 or 19 months. My youngest daughter is 2, and she's still, I mean, I think she said like 1 or 2 words, so she's a little delayed with speech. But all of my kids started talking around like the 2 or 3 year mark.
Okay. I think we had another in-person question. You got the mic. Okay, perfect.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to work with Grant on and off, and now more recently I've been blessed to join Team Schindler for the 24-25 school year. And so my question is, you know, what advice or suggestions do you have for me as a special educator when it comes to, you know, working with Grant or anyone with a HADS disability?
I see that Hannah's ready for this one. So go ahead.
My advice would be to remember that Grant's a child. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to get things wrong sometimes, but he has capabilities. He's capable. He's intelligent. So certainly don't underestimate him. He's a precious little guy. I've met Grant. Go slowly sometimes, because sometimes it can be hard to keep up with speech. It can be hard to keep up with the speed of talking. It can be hard to keep up in general. So just be mindful of that. Have picture schedules if he needs that. I mean, it's specific to each child. And just love on him every day. Remind him that he's loved, that he's capable. Do the little mantras that they do in the mirror. So
Perfect. What about you, Lila? Do you have some thoughts on advice or information that would help educators?
Yeah, just don't underestimate like any of the people that you teach. I was told I would have a learning disability, and I'm in honors and AP classes right now. I was told that I would be physically challenged and I would never learn how to ride a bike, and I can ride a bike pretty well. So I would just don't underestimate any kids that you have. And this is for the parents too. Don't underestimate your child. You can push your child, but never underestimate them.
Do you have some thoughts, Dexter, on advice? Like, now's your chance to tell the teachers what to do. So any advice?
That's a chance I can have my going back to them. Not really.
Okay. What about Danielle? Did you want to take this one as a parent and as you know, being a student at one point in your life? Advice that you give to educators?
Sure. Well, it goes to like any type of special disability. Never, like a lot of other panelists have said, never underestimate the capability of the child that is in your care. Never put them down. Growing up, I had a lot of people tell me that, oh, you're lazy, you're never going to amount to anything. And I mean, at almost 40 years old, that still hurts. But being almost 40, I run 2 successful businesses. I actually started a catering business 2 years ago. And you know what? We're capable of doing anything that we put our minds to. Granted, people go about things a different way. And you know what? Everybody that has a disability thinks differently. So when you have something that's hanging over your shoulders, something that people are going to like look at you like you're a hindrance to society, which a lot of people do, unfortunately, and it's rough, you know, as a person growing up in today's world, when you have this hanging over your head and you're sitting there asking yourself questions, you know, never always give somebody a benefit of the doubt, because the more positivity that you put into the world, the more positive that that person's going to think about themselves. And it's rough because you see these kids, and a lot of them get bullied because a lot of people don't understand what's going on. And I tell my 10-year-old, Grin, she acts crazy. You know, there's times I call her a feral raccoon. She just goes off the wall. But you know, she's positive. She's always happy. And you know, when you're happy, a lot of other people see that, and then they think there's something wrong with you because you're constantly happy. But just be positive with anybody, because, and that's my 6-year-old. She's very unhappy that I have the phone. But you know, no matter, everybody has a different story on their plate. Everybody has a different background that they're coming from. So my word of advice to everybody, like whether it be a parent, whether it be another child, whether it be, you know, just, you know, an educator, just be positive, because, you know, life is not always as bad as it may seem. And you could be the bright point in that child or person's life. You could be that shining star that the child needs that particular day or that particular moment where they feel like they're bummed out. A smile works wonders. And, you know, positivity never hurt anybody. So just be positive, just be happy, just, you know, because while they're also learning, you're also learning as well.
Thank you. And I think, I apologize, I missed it. Jonathan, you have your hand up there, so we'll flip over to you if you have some great things to share.
My I have two children. And my boy have the problems. He started to talk with 2 years old, and before he put his glasses, he do not smile for everywhere. It's not he can't recognize the people around there. With 2 or 3 years old, we started a lot of therapies, speech therapies, auditory therapies, and occupational therapy. Is help a lot of his he to grow up in social I think I forgot the word.
Ramiro, do you want to help with the words? What's it in Portuguese?
Ok, ele teve bastante dificuldade para antes, porque ele não conseguia ver direito, e depois com essas terapias ele conseguiu se sociabilizar muito bem e até melhor que colegas dele do mesmo grau da escola.
Yeah, so he said that his son, prior to therapy, when he was 2 or 3 years old, he had a lot of challenges socializing with other kids, recognize expressions. But then after the therapies with occupational therapy, then that got much better. And now it's even better than other kids.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. So I just want to be mindful of our time here. I don't know if we have a lot more questions in the chat or in the room. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions if we've got.
We have
more.
one in the chat right now.
Okay.
Do any of you have anger issues, and how do you deal with this?
Okay. Does anyone? I'm not gonna point at anyone and see if you want to answer, but does anyone have an experience with it that they might like to share? I see Lila. Yeah. Oh, Sadie. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna look up. Sadie, please share.
So yeah, I mean, with anger, I mean, with a lot of like when people don't understand me, it causes a lot of anger. It causes a lot of like unjust because nobody can understand, nobody can know what I'm going through. It, I'm not talking about the people that have HADDS because I know that they understand what I'm talking about. But for me, a lot of therapy helps because how I understand the world versus a quote unquote normal person is a lot different. And so I go to therapy to get a lot of clarity to understand it the best that I can for myself. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Lila, did you wanna?
Yeah. So I've like left the house a lot when I'm angry. Like sit in a tree or sit outside to just get away from it. And I usually come back in and I like tell my parents like you don't like understand what I'm feeling, like you don't understand me. And I know the people with HADS, they can understand me, but I feel like a parent will never truly understand how it feels when you're angry to have HADS. And I would just say, just try and sympathize with your child and like talk to them about it. I know I've gone through 12 now. Now it's 13 therapists, and I feel like they don't understand me. So now I'm gonna try going to a psychiatrist now. Um, but yeah, I would just try and sympathize with your child. It will be hard sometimes. I know my parents have definitely been through the ringer with me and screaming at them and hitting them and stuff like that. And I'm really proud of them for what they've done. Shout out to mom.
And with me, anger is a bad thing because when I have a phone and it has a parental lock, like at a certain time it will lock off, which I hate, but mum loves it. And she's like, hey, and I'll get really angry because I'm like, oh, can you add 10 more minutes on? No. 5 more minutes? No. And I just get really angry. And mum, I love you. I don't mean it in a harmful way. It's just something I can't control. I love you, mum. Thank you.
Anna, did you want to add to this one?
I do.
Sure.
Growing up, I had a yelling problem, and it was directed at my mom. So kudos to her, truly. I felt angry that I wasn't understood, that I wasn't accepted by my peers, because no one truly liked me. They thought I was a weird kid, which I am very weird, but I embrace it. I love it. So we get not really in yelling matches, but I would yell a lot. It made my dad leave the house. But throughout the years, I've grown to outgrow that. Now I'm much better talking to my mom instead of yelling in her face. So yeah, I still struggle with anger in a way, but I release it through stimming. I listen to music at super high volumes, probably busting my eardrums in the process, but it helps me. I do puzzles and I'll redo the puzzle, and I have Legos. It may seem odd, but I sort the Legos, I throw them back in the bucket, and I sort them again. And so that's how I deal with my anger and my frustrations. That's how I deal with it.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to be aware that we have an amazing research panel coming up next. So I don't even know how to offer my heartfelt thanks to these individuals for sharing their honest answers, for giving people insight into their experiences, and for volunteering your time from around the world to join us. So please help me thank our panelists today. So thank you very much. And if there are questions in the chat that have gone unanswered, we'll do our best to find a way to address them after the conference and the follow-up. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.